Of the Governance Committee to order. We'll start with a roll call. Assistant Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Councilor Lombardi.
Here.
And I am Councilor Cook, and I am here, and Councilor Tabor could not be with us today. So we'll start by reviewing and looking at the minutes from the July 8th, 2024 meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review those, or?
Do you need a copy? I have extra copies.
You don't have it?
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes from the July 8th, 2024 meeting are approved. The first item on our agenda is one additional Public Art Review Committee ordinance change. This is a very minor change, but I thought that I should bring it back to the Governance Committee because I would never want to take something onto the council without everybody having seen all of the changes. I'm going to share that here on the screen with everyone. It's at the very end of the ordinance in section 1.1708. In blue highlight, the language "with advice from Park." And so what this does is it just adds to the language in that sentence. Maintenance needs for existing public art will be identified by the Public Works Department with advice from Park, with cost estimates for same. The reason that the Public Art Review Committee has come back and asked for this language is that's part of the task for the Public Art Review Committee, is to review all the artwork in the city periodically and to create kind of a list of maintenance needs, so that the Department of Public Works is not tasked solely with having to track public art. It should help relieve some of the burden on the Department of Public Works to inspect all of these pieces of art. And it also should help the Public Art Review Committee identify where funds should be spent as a priority on pieces that need repair. So it's just with advice from Park, but still, again, the maintenance needs are ultimately identified by the Public Works Department. And I should note that they already work in close collaboration. The Public Art Review Committee asks for to have a member of Department of Public Works on all their review processes when they're reviewing new pieces, so that we're aware in advance of any maintenance concerns before selecting a piece of art. So that is the change in language that came back to us.
Can I move to accept that?
I'll second that.
All right. Is there any other discussion?
No, feels pretty logical to me.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that change is accepted. Is there any other discussion on this, on all the changes? I know that we've already had several end discussions on this in several meetings, hoping that we were close to finished. Before we go ahead and advance this to the council for a request in the second August meeting for first reading in September.
We'll just get on the record that legal has looked at this. We did point out that the current draft that you'll be forwarding to the city council is a little broader than its original form, in that it is seeking to encompass more than just public art in public spaces, as in city-owned and on city property. That because of the change in definitions, this does allow a greater oversight of what we'll call public art in private spaces, or private art in public spaces, such as we have with our community space easements and the public art, so to speak, as in not publicly owned, but still very visible and in a community space. So that is a little bit broader than what was the original.
Is there concern from staff or legal with the expanded
I think it's consistent with, where the committee has wanted to go. It's just recognizing there's a lot of nuance here, and just being sensitive to that we have a definition that's a little broader and perhaps more encompassing, which means we should just make sure that we're clear, and all the committees should be clear that when we're talking about this, are we talking who's got the ownership rights and what that might mean.
Okay.
So I think, public art that has been produced in the past are ongoing in our community space easements. We have provisions in our easement that talk about who's to maintain it, and it's, it comes up as part of the planning board process and the site review process, and, but I don't think that they really look or approve of the artwork itself as much as, that there will be some type of art and where it's going to be. So here, you're trying to overlay also the ability to have them, the committee have some say in that. But as far as, as long as it's in a public space, or whether it's an easement or we own it in fee, then you can regulate it. If it's private property, then obviously you can't extend your reach.
And I think the goal of the Public Art Review Committee is to make sure there's the ability, not the requirement, that anybody who is developing a piece of public art in a public space, or even in a private space that is within public view, has the ability to request a review, if they would like, from the Public Art Review Committee, because there is nothing in state law that would compel them to do so. They would have to go to the planning board or, and the Historic District Commission, but they don't need to come to the Public Art Review Committee. But I think the goal is to have that allowance so that they can have review, stamp of approval, a letter, for example, from the Public Art Review Committee to provide some guidance for land use boards should that person want that. So, but again, it would never be a requirement because that's just not what state law says. So, yeah. That makes sense.
What's going on?
Okay.
We had problems with the air conditioning system this weekend. As you might have noticed, it's a little stuffy in the hallways. This room, being the coolest of all rooms in the city hall, feels kind of nice. But I'm not sure if that accounts for all the noise. But and they're cleaning the bricks outside too.
Yeah.
We hope that they can repair that quickly for everyone's sake. So,
Cooling off.
so if everybody is comfortable, then I will go ahead and move this forward. I will ask the legal department to get this in correct format. And I'm happy to work with you because there's a lot of changes in here. And we tried to do that by just, without using redlining, but I think there is a little redlining in a few places.
Okay, we'll work with you.
Okay, and get it into format to go to the next council meeting with a request for first reading in September.
Do you want a formal motion on the record that this is coming from governance?
Do you want
So
that?
moved.
City Council?
Okay. Second?
Second?
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this will go back. Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is administrative ordinance review. And the legal department is going to lead us through that. I have the administrative ordinance up for everyone to see. Just tell me where to go and I will start
What
there.
I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the document I have.
Oh, great. So I will stop sharing.
Okay. You know what? I'm not sure that's shared though. Hang on. I got to figure out how to share it. Oh, now I can't. Hang on. Went the wrong way.
To go back into
go.
Zoom.
Yep.
Yeah,
Share.
there.
Okay. There we go. Sorry, it's been a while since I shared on Zoom versus Teams. Okay, there we go. All right, that should work. Okay, so the staff has been reaching out to various departments and beginning to identify items that they think could use some updating. So while we don't have, all the language really ready to go yet, we can kind of flag some of the places that we're looking at getting some language back to the committee, get your preferences on how you would like this package, which you'll see in a bit what some of the options are. And we are still, like I said, waiting to hear back from departments. They're like, yes, we need to get you some language, and they're working on it. But let me show you kind of at least what we've gotten to date. And then, I don't remember when the next meeting is. Is it 2 weeks from now?
I think the next meeting's actually in September.
Oh, okay. So
Because
we'll
we had
have a
some
little time.
challenges around the second August meeting.
I
so.
think that'll be perfect for timing, because we've had people out on vacation, and it's been kind of tracking people down. So let me just start at the beginning. We have some simple housekeeping items. And I'm kind of inclined to take the more housekeeping items and put them together in one package. So as you'll see, just fixing references to, our administrative organization, organizational chart. You know how it says, as shown in the following chart, and there's no chart? That's because we do it in the budget document. And that seems to me a logical place to do that, because it'll live more easily and it gets updated every year. So that's one of my housekeeping suggestions there. The language has been department administrator. We also call them department heads. So I was clarifying that. And here, it was really getting rid of the he, hers by just tightening the language. Here's what we want: efficient operation, compliance with the approved budget, oversight, preparation and maintenance of records, bits and pieces. So not a lot of specific changes, but cleaning it up in a way that I hope will, again, just tighten the language. And there may be bits and pieces to add, but that's, again, kind of some of the housekeeping items. And then we've started to talk with the departments about just updating some of the language here under the specific duties, function, and responsibilities. So again, economic and community development, as you know, we've kind of merged those. So that needs a little updating. Finance, we've been kind of evolving finance, and in part, you're going to see some language which I haven't put in yet, making it clear that the statutory requirement to do a specific type of audit when the tax collector leaves is really unnecessary for us, because we're reconciling monthly. It's really meant for the small towns that don't have the kind of robust finance department we have. So we're just going to put some language probably in here, I'm guessing, that really makes it clear that we have that authority to do it ourselves, and we don't need to pay $5,000 to have someone else do it for us. And yeah, we may just update human resources a little bit, IT, but I know some departments have specifically said, I want to give you new language, library being one of them. There's so much they're doing now, planning and sustainability, of course, we want to peg that, recreation. So we've got pieces there that, again, I consider more housekeeping, updating, rather than substantive. We may talk about just kind of being more specific in terms of some of the authority of the city manager, now that, it's just more modern times, and maybe it's useful to put some language in here. We're evaluating whether that makes sense or not. And then we don't need to talk about boards and committees, because you did a lot of work there already, so let me go to the next big section. Okay, so we have the housekeeping ones, particularly in the front end, and then we have procurement procedures, or purchasing procedures as it used to be called. This is where we need a comprehensive rewrite. So let me share with you the exciting news, which is we are in the process of deploying procurement software. We are very excited about this. So we're in the very early stages, but we've selected the product. And I think we're finalizing the contract, if it hasn't been finalized already. We're hoping to have it live by Thanksgiving timeframe.
Wow.
And the new software will basically allow vendors and interested parties to sign up to get notices automatically in their preferred fields, something that we just don't have the ability to do now. There's a lot of handwork, like individual employee having to push out notices. It will allow the acceptance of electronic bids
Oh, good.
so that, I think it may improve the number of bids that we get. Most municipalities already do this, at least in the larger cities here in New Hampshire. It will be more sustainable. We'll have, fewer pieces of paper and plastic covers, coming involved. So that's why this whole section really needs an update, because we're still writing things in here. And we're sending notices to the newspaper, which no vendor that we know of reads.
Except the newspaper.
So that's going to save us a little bit of money. And frankly, it saves us admin time. Like, just putting it in the right form, to get to the newspaper, to make sure it gets published, to then pay the bill. When you think of all the consequences of this very labor-intensive structure, those pieces, if we update the ordinance and implement the software, we're very excited, because it's going to allow us hopefully a little bandwidth to then be more proactive in how we identify vendors and get that bigger pool or look at other opportunities. So,
Question is, will this also help prevent misuse of the process?
I haven't seen a lot of misuse of the process, so
Just
that's
thinking
why
about the looking for an audit committee, or looking for an audit firm.
I don't think it changes that much, because we're still going to have an RFP process and a procurement policy. So I wouldn't say, at least as I've drafted now, we do have a whole procurement manual, because that's what this talks about. And in this case, I've got a reference to a procurement system, which would include policies and software. Wow. That's interesting. We might need to have them, we might need to run
Ask them to stop.
or talk to Joe Alameda. Do
Okay.
you have his number? And just see if they could work on another section for a minute. If not, take my phone.
I'm not sure if I.
So I tried to draft this in a way that is more encompassing than simply a printed manual, because now we're going to have a whole different
Do you have his number?
process. Yeah. Hold on a minute. My apologies. Okay.
You want to write it down? Since we're recording. I'll just say, the part that I'm excited about for this new software is that it also is going to improve our internal communications. So it's set up with the process embedded for all of our contracts review for any type of purchasing that's required from one department to the next department, because there's 10 different checks that have to be made on the procurement list right now, including, going in and out of legal. And legal is working on standard contract language and working on documents that will be standardized for this process. So we're excited about that as well.
I shot Joe a text while you were talking. Thanks.
Okay. Yep.
We'll see. If not, you've now got his number.
I'm putting it in.
Yeah. So that's part of the big rewrite here. And like I said, I've done part of it, but I haven't floated it through the process of legal. Nathan Eleftheria, who's our procurement coordinator. Yeah, so really, I won't go through all the details, but as you can see, it's just trying to make it clear, you know, for example, the roles and responsibilities for procurement functions is something that we would put in our procurement manual like we already have now. What's interesting is in the charter, there's reference to a single purchasing agent, which, you know, old school, kind of made sense, because you want one person who's ultimately going to be responsible. But as a practical matter, in the way that, given the volume that we have and the fact that we try to avoid a single point of failure, really having a system and overlapping, you know, responsibilities to make sure that the work gets done when someone is out for, you know, whether it's medical leave or vacation or a unanticipated retirement, that we've got the ability to keep the processes going and in good order. So just know we've got in the charter this, you know, you do want someone who's ultimately responsible, but we're trying to make sure that the language in the ordinance doesn't have that one person signing everything, because that has kind of been sort of the challenge as we evolve. And like I said, we do a lot of acquisition, as you know, of all types of things. So I added language about, you know, how we obtain professional services, because really we're usually looking for high standards when it comes to those professional services, and expressly to support and take advantage of state, regional, cooperative, and other procurement processes that leverage greater buying power and competitive pricing. So particularly in the technology field, we have often relied on the state bid and piggybacked off of that. And we have that in our procurement manual, but we thought it'd be good to put it in the ordinance that this is something we want to do. There's another big buying cooperative that's run from a nonprofit organization out of Massachusetts that does a lot of like emergency equipment. And so we've used that before, and we're a member of that intentionally to be able to take advantage. They bid it out like every year or every, you know, 18 months with a lot of conditions on it, because it just makes it so much easier, you know, for the many Massachusetts communities where they have a lot more rules than we do, to then have a cooperative to do that. So
It's just very logical. We used to do this with the YMCA for equipment.
yeah,
So if you buy it regionally or rent it regionally,
yeah.
it'd save a lot of money.
And sometimes you get better terms and conditions, and that is certainly the case as we're finding in the technology field, where we often don't have, you know, quite the power. So all of those subscription-based assets that we need to do the services we do now. And then I put a catch-all to continue to identify evolving options for procurement, particularly in areas of technology and other areas for which competitive bidding is not a good option. You know, what we certainly have found is that it is harder to get some industries to do a more formal process. You can pick up the phone, you can schedule the online demo, but they won't actually make the effort to engage in a formal process in quite the same way that traditional construction companies will. And so it's trying to stay on the edge of what is going to work to get us what we need at a good price. So
How do we currently handle that for like things like office supplies, right? When you're buying office supplies in bulk, I can't imagine that they like to bid.
right. So so the current I meant to double check what the current bid amount is. I think it's like 22,000, somewhere in that ballpark, because it, as you'll see in here, it used to be 10,000 when this was first passed, and then it gets updated by the CPI every year by the finance department's at 22 now, roughly. And what we often do, and you know, I should have brought a Lefturi in, but we will for the next round when we go through with language that you're really ready to act on. We have established vendor relationships with a couple of different vendors, and we'll go out and typically order from the same vendor because we're well under that, or we'll get 3 quotes. So our procurement manual basically says if you've got something that's more than 500, not an emergency, and but under the bidding amount, you go out and get 3 quotes, and we do that all the time. So whether it's, I was going to say, how many things did I see? Whether it's stuff that the PD was looking to buy, some piece of new technical equipment or a new firearm or something, or some body armor or something, they are providing those 3 quotes. And same thing for Public Works. They know the drill, which is go out and get your 3 quotes. Unless, of course, and we'll go here, if it's something that's proprietary and there's really only one place to buy it from, which happens a lot. So one of the things we'd like to talk to the committee about is, like I said, right now it's about at $22,000 that we have to go out for competitive bid. Which doesn't mean that there's no process. It's a less formal process because we go out all the time. And the question is, where do we raise? Do we just use the 22,000 or that rough number that we've got now, or do we increase it? I threw in a number, but it's for discussion. And we could talk more about the process, and I'd bring the procurement folks in when we're ready to tackle this, so that you can hear straight from Eleftheria. Trevor's been doing a lot, Nathan, obviously, and the team, and kind of noodle out what seems to make sense for the city council and the city. So competitive bids, normally we go out, like I said, right now it's about 22,000, we go out to bid. But then there are a lot of exceptions. So professional and other services, typically those are requests for proposals rather than competitive bids. And in any request for proposal, it's very clear, and again, we have it set out in our procurement manual, you have to have clear standards. Here are the points we are going to evaluate you on, here's what we expect to be in your proposal. So it's a still pretty formal process. It just means that price is generally not the sole determining factor. It may be a factor, but you're looking at those other harder to measure pieces, or you don't have something that you can define well enough to put in a bid and have apples to apples. Because if you're not quite sure what you need, you can't really do a bid. And then I have started to toy with language, goods or services that are acquired within a time frame that does not allow for competitive bidding, such as an emergency. But we often have things that aren't quite an emergency, but when you have to factor in, a 3-month process for a competitive bid, you might need it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, because you're in the middle of a construction project and you discover something in the wall and you need to then do X or purchase X. And it is more than $22,000, but as a practical matter, you need to figure out how you're going to, get that other piece. And so just being clearer that there are things short of an emergency, but still timely. And then we have a lot of things where we need replacement for proprietary parts. The wastewater treatment facility is a good example of that, because a lot of it is very specialized equipment, and if something goes wrong with that equipment, you need to get the exact same thing you had that broke. And there's really only one vendor to get that from. So we've also had occasion where, for consistency of equipment, we see this with our fire personnel in particular. If they are used to having a certain type of equipment that they are trained on, and they're going to replace, 6 pieces of that equipment, and they still have 10 pieces left of that equipment, generally you want, for consistency of training and use, to have that same functionality, and so it's that same piece of equipment. So, and we usually try and document that very well when that happens. And then we check in, when it's been a couple years, is that equipment still working for you, or should we update it? So, and technology acquisitions, because bidding just does not work for our technology, by and large, short of equipment where we often go off the state bid if it's a particular type of laptop or something, or switch.
Grab my pen. I'm just going to take it back.
And then we have competitive bidding process. Again, because so much would be changing with our procurement software, we'd be looking at, just trying to ensure adequate notice to bidders. Because publishing it in the newspaper does not seem to be a good use of anyone's resources at this point. And then the standard, if a bid is to be awarded, it goes to the lowest qualified bidder, properly responding to the invitation to bid, unless, and there was always an option in here to go to the city council for something that was not low bid. So I put unless the city manager petitions the city council to make a different award based on the best interests of the city. Generally, in my experience, I don't think we've gone to the city council once, because typically what happens is if someone is a low bidder who we're unsatisfied with, it's usually because they aren't, quote, qualified, i.e. they don't have the, say, the certification required by New Hampshire Department of Transportation to do that particular type of road work or bridge work or something like that. But there are certainly occasions where it's been on the fence about whether to not disqualify, but try and go to the second highest bidder, and that could be in a case where we've got someone, a vendor who has a less than satisfactory, history, perhaps with other communities, or on the fence as to whether to give them that shot to see if they do a better job with us with more oversight. Or sometimes we'll have unbalanced bids where a firm will, sometimes it's an error in their bid, in which case we sometimes allow them to withdraw, because if it's a significant error, usually there's no value in kind of making an unhappy contractor start working for you. Or if there's an unbalanced bid where they've kind of put their money in one bucket more than it should be there, and that creates other problems from a management point of view. So we're pretty good about how we scrutinize our bids. And then a section, because we're going to now have space, just dealing with disposition of real estate. Not that that happens very often, and there's some language in the existing one about mobile, or we'll update the language, manufactured homes, because sometimes we actually, it's really hard. They're usually not in good shape, and we, it's an area that's delicate, as you might imagine, and we have not had many occasions that I can think of where we've actually foreclosed or tax deeded.
On one.
Yeah. But I can see if I can get you more information on that as we go forward. And then I'm still in the needs to rewrite. So this is where I ran out of time on Sunday, and our purchasing records. So that is coming, and if it makes sense to you, I will deal with the procurement stuff in a separate bucket and bring in the team with some language.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very complex. I think that's a big
Yeah.
read for, I mean, this isn't available yet, right? I mean, that
No, but
copy-
my
yeah.
goal would be to distribute something in advance of the meeting so that you could read it
Right.
in advance, take a look at it, and have the team, full team available. So this is kind of here's where we're headed. If it's okay with you and you want us to put more time and effort into it, then we'll bring it back with the team and with some language in advance for you to look at.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that is logical, that we go through that. We might need to also see just the manual so we know what the instructions are, so it dovetails in
Yeah.
the same way that our training manual does, so that we make sure we're not missing something that
Yep.
we need to include.
Yep. Okay. Good. All right, and then this was all your section. We did have some conversation back and forth about how we'd still, in our ideal world, would have the ethics section would be, for employees, would be slightly pulled out rather than mushed in, but we don't want to go back there right now, unless you want to go back there, but we're like, we got
We
other
can wait
things
on
we
that.
need to do. Okay, that was our view too. And then I'm in the process of seeing if we need to update this. This is related to dispatch, so that's a work in progress right now. So stay tuned, I might have more to report, but it seems like we'll have some chunks that we definitely know we want to do sooner rather than later, particularly with regards to procurement, so that we're ready to go when that software rolls out. Woo! So there are sections there. Budget preparation, prohibited practices, and municipal enforcement procedures. So Jane Farini in the legal department has been working with inspections and planning and health to update the whole citation and penalty section of our ordinance, to get it more organized, to have it not conflict. So she's got a draft that she's working on for this. And like I said, this she has been working on for months, actually, with those departments, with a whole fee schedule, or not fee schedule, fine schedule, what happens when you do this and that. So that is coming, and I would suggest we do that separate as well, because that'll be a little, well, her goal is to make it less complicated by putting it all in one schedule and in one place, but it might have implications for language we're taking away from other provisions just to consolidate it. So that is coming.
That's great.
A rewrite that has been long in the works.
It's always helpful when it's all laid out in one place for residents.
And we would agree with you on that. And
I can just add
Yep.
to that I'm also in the process of compiling our list of violations that the police department might pursue in court, because they are getting a new case management software, and we need to give the contractor the information to input into the database with a list of what the violations are, what the code number is, what the penalty is, what the title is for that. And as I do that, we might, I think, find that we have a lot of redundancy, and we need to work on the titles of those violations. So that will be a work in progress over the next few months for me, for the prosecution by Carpel, which is the case management system. And I have a deadline for them, so when I'm done with that for them, I'll be able to produce it for you as well.
That's great.
There's a lot going on in legal.
There's a lot going on.
Going on everywhere.
Yeah. And then we're going to suggest a small change, and I haven't run this change by anyone yet, so, but basically, we had a conversation in legal the other day that as a result of some state law changes, we have the ability to adopt an additional fee with regards to public records. But as you can see, our procedure normally just says you do it as part of the budget process, fee committee, and then we go to budget process. So we thought we should kind of fix this language to say, or at such other time as may be in the best interest of the city, so that you'd send it to the fee committee, and then the city council would vote on the recommendation of the fee committee. So we thought we'd just clean that up. We might have done that,
This makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
we've changed fees
We have.
in the middle
Yes.
of the year.
Yes,
So
we have. And so we thought, well, let's get this in accord with our actual practice, which we think is good. Yeah, and so this may change because we're going to have a whole new fee section, and then you've got your funding for art. And I think that was the end of kind of what our thoughts are. So,
okay.
we stop
Well,
sharing.
that is kind of that is it. That's that administrative.
That's the administrative code section.
Been
Is there
trying to
anything you think
follow
I've
it on-
forgotten there? Okay.
No, there's a lot of work to be done in that.
Yeah.
So we can take it in chunks, however you would like to do it, and whatever order you would like to do it in.
Well, I would say, first of all, I've been trying to follow it on the existing one, that's on the website, which is hard. But I would ask of you what you think is the highest priority from the staff point of view.
Procurement, certainly, because we'll be hopefully deploying that software in November.
So that seems like a logical place to start then, to me.
Yeah, that and what Jane is already working on.
Yep.
With the enforcement procedures and citations, are the two that come to mind. I think the housekeeping portions are pretty simple.
Yep.
Maybe we can get you that to contemplate for the next meeting, just a sort of generic housekeeping start. And then bring the procurement team in for the next meeting.
That sounds fantastic. I do have a question around housekeeping.
Yep.
I just brought up on the screen for everyone to see the list of the administrative code and the order it goes in. I think I have a question around where the legal department is on this order. I think it can be a bit confusing, and I think it's in this order because of when things were added. And do we need to reorder and renumber anything?
I generally like to do those things. I'd have to think about how difficult or easy it would be because of other references. So for example, where we have the adoption of fees by budget resolution, that language is in all throughout the ordinance because we've been trying to put it all in one place. There we go. On the other hand, we have looked at publication software, which is potentially going to change everything anyways. So I would not be adverse per se. I'd say if that's something you'd be interested in entertaining, then we could, maybe meet and see, what makes sense. And knowing that things may change anyways.
Right. I'm just thinking that this is an opportunity. If
Yeah.
we're doing cleanup, maybe we should talk about where things are
Yeah.
in this. Should credit cards be closer to purchasing procedures? Instead of having them separated,
Yes.
so that it's logical when people are reading
Zoomed
through.
with
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Yep, we might be able to subsume it within, which doesn't then change the numbering of some of the other things.
Yes, yeah, that's really my question, is like,
Yep.
what makes this make the most logical sense so that somebody's going through it and they can easily find what they're looking for?
Yep,
Because I think it can be a bit confusing.
yep.
I'm not sure what the reserve for future use was all about.
So that you wouldn't have to change the numbering, but that was there before I got here.
Yeah, it's been there forever and nobody's used it.
Yeah.
Do we have some use? we
For
need?
them?
Yeah.
I think that the mayor, in asking us as a committee to look at cleaning up some of this language, was to reduce, not expand, what we're doing.
Yeah.
And to reduce regulation and make regulations clearer. So I don't know that we want to add anything unless there's something that we need to add. Is there something around IT that we need to have in ordinances? I mean, this is just a hypothetical question that maybe we hadn't envisioned because it, was something that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Department.
I think that's the only
That's why
question.
I'm pinging the various departments to say, come on, you told me you were interested. Let's go. So I'll keep on my cats here.
And is there a reason to have a reserved section for use later, or could you just add another article later
Right.
at the end?
Right.
So that's the other
Might just come out, yeah.
question I have.
It would then change, boards and commission, the numbering for 3, right?
Right. So that's the other question, when you start having to renumber So,
We'll give it a
we'll
look.
let you guys look at that and come back and make any recommendations. And it might be just too difficult to do that because of references elsewhere, but
Yep.
whatever we can do to simplify, I think is better.
Sounds good.
Are there any other concerns here?
Sounds like a lot of work.
I think it's going to be the rest of our term.
Yes.
I think we can probably spend a few months on procurement. We'll probably spend September and October on procurement so that we can get it to the council in time for a November rollout would be the goal, which means we might have to do some work outside of committee review. I'll make sure everybody gets to do some of that, whoever wants to. And the cleanup piece we can probably do fairly quickly and simultaneously, I would think. But then when the legal department is ready for us to get to enforcement and fees, look at that second. I think that there's more than just the administrative code that we need to look at. So we will address that next after.
You know, and it occurs to me that there may be items in other chapters that really should be in the administrative
So
code
that's not.
that are not there. So that is something we'll talk about in legal.
Okay. So for our next meeting, then we'll
hopefully-
discuss kind of that, where we are on the cleanup and restructuring.
Procurement.
And
hopefully.
procurement. We'll start with procurement, and then we'll plan for the second meeting in September, having people come in to discuss and answer questions around procurement, if that makes sense.
So you've got meeting on the 9th is what I have on my calendar.
Yes, I believe that's right. Here, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can look and double check for you. The next meeting I have for us is on the 9th of September. And actually, I don't have a second meeting in September on the schedule.
You do have.
Do I?
I see one on the 26th of August.
Of August, yes. We had one in August, but I wasn't sure that everyone would be available.
Yeah, it's probably wise.
Yeah, I mean, if that's 3 weeks out, is that too soon? Is everyone available, first of all?
The 26th.
26th of August.
Are you here then, or?
Yeah, I'm out later in the week.
Yeah, I'm out later that week too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out later in the week, but I'm here the 26th,
I'm here. I have an archive meeting before this.
Is
Okay.
that
on the
too
26th.
soon?
Given that I've mostly finished
Finished,
the draft of
yeah.
the procurement section, I just need to run it by the team.
Okay.
Okay,
And then, even if it's a little rough, knowing that if you guys just understand that, it'll be a work in progress, but, it's not that complicated.
My concern is more the 23rd of September.
right. And I don't have us on the schedule for the 23rd of September. I think somebody wasn't available.
Okay, good, because
So,
that would be a busy day with a council meeting too.
right. So I'm thinking that if it's,
We can shoot for the 26th, and if my team is ready to go, I may even have Nathan or Eleftheria here, because I'd rather have them here twice.
okay.
Then here and have it be a stall.
Yeah,
Right.
because I think I know all the answers, but sometimes I don't.
And so we'll aim for the 9th of September for
Yep.
a fuller discussion too,
Yep.
if they can't get here for the 26th.
Yep.
And then we don't have a second meeting scheduled in September. If we feel at that meeting that we need to schedule, we can work on a date and time that works for everyone.
Yep.
Then the next governance committee meeting that I have on the schedule is October the 15th.
Oh, the 15th, I had it on the 14th.
Yeah, the holiday
Oh, yeah.
14th. So I have it on the 15th at 11 is the next meeting that I have after that. So that there's a big window there between September 9th and October 15th. So if we decide we need an extra meeting, we can do that. If we decide not, and that the staff needs more time to go through things and bring
the
back,
next-
we can do that too.
Yep.
But the goal would then be to finish review by the 28th of October. That's the last meeting I have for governance, so that we can get on the calendar for the council for
There's
November.
only one meeting of the council in November, so
Yeah.
I am hoping to get procurement at least wrapped up so that we are ready to deploy.
Okay.
The November meeting is the 28th? I mean, oh no, that's
Middle of the month because of the
middle of the
election.
month. 18th. Is that right? Yeah.
So maybe we need to try to wrap up by October 15th at the latest. That still doesn't get us, that gets us potentially one reading if we tee it up on the 21st of October, but it gets us to, well, it gets us to second reading at the council in November, potentially. So that's not, that's,
Let's put it this way, if we're rocking fast on that go-live date, I will let you know, and we'll figure out how we get there.
okay.
So what is the governance?
One never knows.
Committee in November?
Governance committee meeting in November, I have the 12th, November the 12th, and then the 25th.
So on a Tuesday rather than,
On a Tuesday, because again, we have Veterans Day. We have a lot of a lot of those Monday holidays seem to fall on our weeks, so,
but nothing on
no.
the 25th? No.
I do have the 25th as well
Oh, okay.
on the schedule. But we've always left those second meetings of the month to be as needed.
Yeah.
But I've kept them on the calendar. It was just September that we had trouble scheduling a second meeting. I seem to remember was the
Yeah.
challenge, so I didn't have a second one in September. So, but we can try to schedule in September a second meeting if we need to. And we might to make that schedule. So just everyone be aware. I hate to do that without Counselor Tabor here. I want to make sure that we run that by everyone. And I'd send out a doodle poll to see if we can find a date and time that works. Is that good for everyone?
Yeah.
Right. Is there anything else that we want to discuss today? We good? I don't think we have anyone here or on Zoom for public comment. I don't think so. Okay. Then in that case, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.